This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla in the new Full Battle Rattle Studios.
It's such a basic, fundamental principle that we must see implemented, and that's just simply balancing the doggone federal budget.
A big decision in Utah. The race to replace Congressman Jason Chaffetz is heating up, and one of the candidates still standing is here with us today, a husband, father of 5, and business leader poised to shake up Washington. Stay tuned for our in-depth talk with Tanner Ainge. Plus, we'll have the latest national and Alaska headlines in Sarah Palin news. We'll visit the Crow's Nest with Tanya Crow in California, and a brand new installment of Liberty and Legacy with Tamara Colbert coming up from Texas. Welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio, available at mamagrizzlyradio.com and now available at sarahpalin.com by clicking the More tab. The Palin Update is sponsored by Full Battle Rattle. Full Battle Rattle, helping veterans suffering from combat-related disabilities through the healing power of music. Learn more at facebook.com/fullbattlerattle.abq. Today, we welcome Tanner Ainge to the show. You probably know the name Ainge. Danny Ainge, of course, the NBA great and current GM and president of the Boston Celtics. Well, Dad isn't the only talented and tough one in the family. Tanner Ainge, Danny's son, is running for Congress in Utah and gaining a lot of momentum. Today, we will talk with him about the big race. And right now, we welcome Tanner Ainge to the Palin Update. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we really appreciate you being here with us, and just an exciting candidacy, special election in the great state of Utah. You're running in the 3rd Congressional District on the Republican side, and so many candidates in this race, and here you are emerging as really the top dog, and we're rooting for you, we're praying for you, and we wanted to have you on here today and talk to you about the issues and talk to you about you, too, and just your personal background and everything. So, I'd like to start there, if we could, Tanner. Could you just tell our listeners a little bit about your background?
Sure, thanks. For the past decade, I've been in the business world, helping to invest in and evaluate companies of all shapes and sizes, from billion-dollar enterprises to partnering with entrepreneurs and small businesses, and doing everything I can to help them thrive. I've also worked as an attorney and representing some of the largest companies in America, helping them to navigate these complex and heavy regulatory burdens from the federal government, and also navigate the tax code. And you realize as you do that the burdens that are placed on small businesses, and how we really got to get this off their back so that our private sector and our entrepreneurs can continue to thrive.
You've had some great endorsements of late, but I really like the way you're campaigning. I mean, you get you're a family guy. You get that sense about you, and you've had some big names endorse you, but nothing's been better than the videos of the kids endorsing you, let me tell you.
I'm glad you could see that. Yeah, we've got 5 kids, and it's fun to have them on the trail with me, knocking doors and doing everything they can. They've had a good time.
I know, it's amazing. Even my children, I wasn't running for office, but just the candidates that we've supported. And, you see, little people like that out there and getting that understanding of, really being a patriot. And then you see people who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they don't take the time to vote. So, maybe we can learn some things from our children. I'll tell you that. But you have hit on so many issues so far. I want to get into them with you and talk about why you are the best candidate for this position. And I think we have to lead off with health care. We saw what just happened recently. The Republicans wanted the White House. They wanted the Senate. They wanted the House. They have all 3, and still Obamacare is sitting there and taking its toll on Americans. Talk to us about your stance on Obamacare and what you would do and fight for to fix health care in this country.
Obamacare has been a complete and total failure. We were told we could keep our same doctors, and that didn't happen. We were told that we could keep our same insurance plan, and that didn't happen either. And we were told that costs would go down, but instead the premiums have skyrocketed. And just as bad, the health insurance companies have started to pull out of the system. So there's less choice and competition. Many places, one insurer has a monopoly. And so we have got to find a solution to repeal and replace this. And one thing that I think is going to be very helpful is we need more choice and competition And health savings accounts are one way to do that. It's a way where we can finally start purchasing healthcare with our own dollars on a tax-free basis, and you can actually start having some transparency. Right now, as you go to the doctor with your kids, and if you were to ask how much does an exam or a procedure cost, they don't even know and they can't tell you, and then it takes months to sort through the bills. If we get into health savings accounts, that will go away, and there will be a lot more transparency, and healthcare purchases will be more similar to the way we purchase other things in our lives. Another thing in healthcare is we have to return more power back to the states. One crazy thing that's happened here in the state of Utah is on the state Medicaid program, they identified 600 people who visited the emergency room more than 100 times in a single year. And our state is a fiscally responsible state. Our leaders have common sense, and so they went and they looked into that problem and said, what's happening here? Why is there so much abuse, and why are we wasting so much money? And they realized that the people on the state Medicaid program had the same $3 copay, whether they saw a doctor or an Instacare or visited the emergency room. And so they came up with a plan to just increase the emergency room copay by a couple of dollars just to create the right incentives. And the federal government came in and said, nope, you can't change it. It's our money, you got to do it our way. And that's the type of example that how much waste and red tape there is in Washington. And if you return it to the states, you can do a much better job.
I was thinking before we had you on, we've had several already elected Utah officials on this program, Mia Love, Mike Lee, and Orrin Hatch, who Sarah Palin has called Mr. Balanced Budget many times. And I know that balancing the budget is one of your top priorities, too. And, we hear a lot of issues coming out of Washington and obviously in the media, a lot of sensationalism. But, balancing the budget, it may not be the sexiest of topics, but it's so important. Why do you list that as one of your top issues to fight for?
People don't realize sometimes that everything depends on this. If we stay on the track that we're on, our entire federal budget will be spent on interest on our national debt and entitlement programs. So that completely guts that $0 for national defense, infrastructure, or other needs. And as a business person who's always had to balance the budget, or you go out of business, it just makes no sense to me. And if we continue in this fashion, there will be a day of reckoning. And I don't want that to happen in my lifetime. I don't want it to happen in the lifetime of my 5 kids. And so I think we have to start getting serious in Washington, D.C. about reining that spending in, reducing that national debt.
Sarah Palin took note of your candidacy, posted an article recently regarding your run here, and I know you're very strong on the Second Amendment, and obviously you share the thoughts with the governor there. Talk about how important and precious that amendment is and what Congressman Ainge would do to defend it.
Yes, I've been a proud gun owner for many years, and here in Utah, we're a strong Second Amendment state. I've been a concealed permit holder here, and sometimes I don't think we appreciate our constitutional rights until they begin to be infringed upon. And I had that experience where I had the opportunity after living in the state of Utah to go attend law school in Chicago. And as we got ready to move our family, I started studying the code there in the city of Chicago and realized there was no legal way for me to transport my firearms into the city, into our apartment there. And ultimately, I did everything I could, but I had to sell my guns. And I was grateful that just a couple of months later, the Supreme Court overturned that law in Chicago, and they stood up for the Second Amendment. And we have to do everything that we can. And that's one great thing about getting Neil Gorsuch appointed to the Supreme Court is we have to make sure our right to bear arms is protected.
That's a great point you make, and you were living there for a while. We just had a friend of the family and a friend of the show at our children's VBS this summer, and they were taking an RV trip for the first time, and she was worried about her concealed carry laws because passing through different states and how different it is in each state. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a topic that people need to know about. Obviously, one of the big things we've been hearing about, and you mentioned the Supreme Court, and hopefully that will help in this area, but one of the main touchstones of President Trump's campaign, obviously talking about the wall, talking about illegal immigration. And, Democrats try to make it as if immigration and illegal immigration are the same thing. But I think that you fall along the lines of most Americans, right? Pro-immigration, anti-illegal immigration?
No question. We have to secure the border. I mean, it's a national security issue. We can't let those who would do harm to us, whether it's terrorist organizations or drug cartels, that would sneak up through a porous border. So it makes sense to have a strong border and to enforce our laws and not have people that we don't know living in the shadows. But that doesn't mean that we're anti a strong legal immigration program. In fact, here in the state of Utah, we've had tremendous economic growth, and this fantastic technology industry has come here, and known as the Silicon Slopes. And we have tens of thousands of engineering needs every year, of new jobs. And we have great universities here, and there's people from all over the world graduating with advanced degrees. And it should be those people who want to contribute and be a part of our economy and help create more jobs for others. It should be a little bit easier for them to get the employment they need.
And, I like how a lot of these issues really go hand in hand, and there's a nice flow to them if you stay on course and stay with this conservative thought process. You're talking about balancing a budget, you're talking about legal immigration, you're talking about tax reform, and that then creates more jobs, which everyone can relate to, but more jobs then equals less poverty, right?
Absolutely. And that is one of the great things about the state of Utah right now is we have a state government that has very pro-growth economic policies. Let's have fewer regulations and more modern regulations. Let's have lower tax. And we balance the budget here. And what's happening is it's been known as the number one state for business. And companies from all over the country are relocating here to Utah. And our homegrown businesses are thriving. And some people on the left say, oh, these pro-growth economic policies are only serving those who are at the very top. But what we've experienced is not only is business thriving, but Utah is the most upwardly mobile state in the nation. More people are leaving poverty and low income to middle-class work and self-reliance. And Utah should be the poster child for that. Conservative policies are good for everyone because the private sector lifts everyone.
We're continuing with Tanner Ainge. He's running as a Republican in Utah's 3rd Congressional District. And Tanner, we talked about immigration and illegal immigration and how curbing that is important to our security. But protecting the homeland, that's a component of it. But what else do we need to do? I mean, we are in very interesting times, to put it mildly, right now, as far as precarious situations that we see that are going on. And we've seen, the hits that have come right here on our soil, let alone all the things that are happening in Europe right now. Protecting our homeland, that has to be really toward the top of anybody's agenda, you would hope, who's a public servant right now.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's so many things that the federal government shouldn't be doing, and I spend a lot of time talking about those things. We need to return most of the power that the federal government's doing back to the states. But protecting our homeland, keeping us safe, that's a job of the federal government. We need to support our men and women in uniform. We need to make sure that they have the best technology and equipment to continue to defend us. We need to have the best vetting and security procedures for anyone who wants to come from other countries here to ours, and it needs to be a top priority.
Another issue that's been huge for Sarah Palin and so many Americans is the welfare and the treatment of our veterans. We've seen really what has gone on just horribly over the last 8 years, and now President Trump trying to turn that around. I know some of our good conservative leaders the same, but our veterans really some shoddy treatment in recent years. Where do you stand there, and what would you try to do specifically to try to help out our vets who've done so much for us already?
Well, those men and women who have risked everything and put their lives on the line to protect this country, they deserve the very best. And it's disappointing when you look into the details of how the VA has been run for many years. And I support the overhaul that President Trump is pushing forward at the VA, because we just have to make sure that they have the care and the support that they need when they return home from the battlefield.
Now, for those who don't know, Tanner Ainge, you're the son of Danny Ainge, the great NBA player with the Boston Celtics and Phoenix Suns, and now top man over with the Boston Celtics. And, because of that, you're getting we already mentioned the kids' endorsements are the best, and, of course, important politicians, but you're getting a lot of it. Chad Lewis and other athletes have stepped up and publicly endorsed you. So, I think people like this. They see the outside run of President Trump, Kid Rock running, people coming from different areas. And, a lot of people look and say, well, this person has this background, this person has that background. And that's great. That's what our founders wanted. People from all different walks of life to serve and then go home after they're done instead of these 50-year politicians. And I think you're catching a little steam for that, which is good because, and it's helping your campaign. Sarah Palin's a big basketball fan and accomplished player herself. And, I know that she took note because of your dad. So how's your dad helped you here? I mean, I know basketball, politics, different thing, but just that work ethic. I mean, he was a hard-nosed player.
No question. And some of the sports endorsements, it also comes from my personal experience. Having spent time in the business world, I worked closely with Steve Young, the NFL quarterback, and he was a partner at the firm that I was at, and got to know him. And Chad Lewis in the nonprofit sector, in the business world, we've had a chance to really work together. And so a lot of these people I've had a chance to get to know, and they know who I am as a person, and it's been great to have their support. And my dad has been helpful. He's also been difficult to work with because of this interesting coincidence now with Gordon Hayward leaving the Jazz.
I was going to ask you about Gordon. Yeah. little torn here. Gordon's leaving your state's team, but going to dad, right?
That's right.
Oh man, I mean you can't make that stuff up. The video going around, Donald Trump had his video out there, the old WWE video, and putting the CNN logo on Vince McMahon's head, and then I saw a video of the old clip of Danny Ainge mixing up with Tree Rollins in the 1983 playoffs, and they changed the graphics there to support your campaign. What did you think of that video?
Well, that was fun. I got a good laugh out of that. And that's probably the one correlation there's not a lot between sports and Congress.
Right.
But people do correlate with my dad that he was a very tenacious player. He didn't back down from anyone. And so I think that is in me. And we need someone who's going to go stop the spending and the national debt in Washington, D.C. And it takes some tenacity. You got to be willing to stand up to special interests and others who have their pet spending projects, and I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah, if anyone didn't see that video, it is a classic. We're going to post it on our site and our Facebook page. Even if you just want to see the old Hawks warm-up uniforms when the bench is clear, that's worth the price of admission right there. Hey, you have a unique family, obviously, with your dad being in sports, and now you had a chance at Congress. But your father, in the Blue Jays organization, played baseball. Does that give you guys even a more appreciation of what Tim Tebow's doing right now? I mean, a guy who it's hard enough to excel in anything, and then to go ahead and play one sport so well, and then hold your own in another. Has that impressed the Ainge family?
Yeah, for sure. It speaks to his character and his work ethic, and he's willing to go out there and try something new and succeed. It's not easy, but some of these incredibly gifted athletes can pull it off.
All right, Tanner. Well, listen, we really appreciate you being with us. And can you I know you have the hashtag Ainge for Change, which I love. That's AINGEFOR change for Twitter. And tell us how people can help out and learn more as you head to the election.
Thanks. Yes. AingeForCongress.com is our website. That's AingeForCongress.com. Facebook, our page is also Ainge for Congress. And here in Utah, ballots are already showing up in people's mailboxes. And so now is the time to vote. So we just encourage people to vote. The primary is down to just 3 of us. And so it's me and 2 others, and we're just trying to get as many as we can to pull the lever for us or send in their ballot for us, and we think we have a real shot at winning this.
All right, and if people didn't know before, after what we saw with the Obamacare situation in the past few days, they know now. We need reinforcements in Washington like never before to help things move along. And Tanner Ainge, one of those guys that can do it. Tanner, God bless you. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Kevin.
For more on Tanner Ainge, head to aingeforcongress.com. That's AINGEFOR Congress.com. Now it's time for Sarah Palin News, headlines, and more about Governor Palin. We say goodbye to precious Charlie Gard. Faith can move mountains for the Redskins QB. Luke Skywalker chooses the dark side. Kid Rock off to a good start. Comrade de Blasio meets his match. More of the same from Alyssa Milano. A change of heart, perhaps, from Jim Carrey. One NBA player hears from an old pen pal. Wait till you hear what he's up to. Horrifying Obamacare continues to take its toll. Global warming real, or is it just a bunch of malarkey? You tell us, and grab your very own collector's edition shirt before August 15th. You can purchase it at merchful.com/snowflakes. New sheriff in town, Scaramucci, gets down to business. Proud to be an un-American. That's the word from some major cities. Liberal hypocrisy toward our First Lady, and Priebus is shown the door. To read about all of these stories, you can visit the Mama Grizzly Radio Facebook page. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, and to read her devotionals, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page. Follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA. And don't miss the new sarahpalin.com. Now let's head to the crow's nest. Here's Tanya Crow.
Thanks, Kevin. There is a major theme that's been running through my life, in particular this week, and in the politics that I've been observing on both sides of the aisle. And it's having to do with responsibility, accountability, culpability. These are concepts that really have a depth to them. And it's interesting to see how those qualities of being responsible, of being accountable, affect the quality of our lives, or in this case, affect the quality of governing in our country. And I have to say that the bipartisan lack of responsibility and accountability has been huge this week, starting with Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party coming out with some cockamamie better deal that they're now trying to sell us. When Schumer was talking on ABC News and he said, the number one thing that we did wrong is we didn't tell people what we stood for. No, you did, Mr. Schumer. You told us exactly what you stood for the last 8 years, and that we would just get more of the same for the next 4 years. And we rejected it. We understood perfectly what you stood for, and we still understand perfectly what you stand for. Your policies don't work. We don't like them. And a better deal? Where were you for the last 8 years? If you wanted to create a better deal, why didn't you do it? And, you know, I started to look at my own life. Where am I lacking responsibility? Part of what motivates me lacking in responsibility in my life is a lack of care. The things that I tend to want to not take responsibility for are the things that maybe I don't care about. If I really, really, truly care about something, I tend to want to take responsibility for it. Just like the responsibility that the Republicans had toward their promises and their vows that they made to the American people. Do they really care? And I see a correlation between those two things in a striking way. And personally, it has been painful for me to look at the areas of my life that I have not been taking responsibility for, and to see that there is that correlation, and asking myself, is it, can I care more? And therefore, taking that responsibility to make it happen, to do whatever it takes. And I do find it fascinating that this week these two parties showed very clearly their lack of care. And I do have to say that General Kelly being the next chief of staff and how he dealt with being the Homeland Security advisor. And when things went a little awry with their rollout with the initial travel ban, it was really admirable to see somebody stand up and take responsibility for what happened clearly and directly and say, I can do better. And to do that. And to me, that shows a man that truly cares. And I truly believe in my heart that Trump has that kind of care in his heart. And it's really wonderful to see him search out like-hearted people in that way. This is Tanya Crow with Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tanya Crow on Mama Grizzly Radio. More from the Crow's Nest next week.
Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
A national grassroots survey by the Convention of States Project this week gave voice to thousands of activists who say lasting change to help America get on the right track can only come with a seismic shift at the federal level. This ire at the local level grows as the grassroots blame the political establishment and the media for blocking President Trump. And the frustration of inaction to keep the number one campaign promise for every Republican since 2010, which is a full repeal of Obamacare, continues. Why aren't federal legislators taking the people's desires seriously? Why isn't there a sense of urgency with revamping the progressive tax system and cutting corporate taxes? Why can't the Congress multitask, for Pete's sake? Almost half of respondents, 47% of those surveyed have joined the Convention of States movement within the past year, showing the growing number of citizens that are angry with elected officials in Washington even since Trump got elected, because they want to rein in DC's power. They want to return it back to the states and back to you and me, the people. Many of the Convention of States volunteers have just joined, but out of those who took the survey, 64% have been involved in politics at some capacity in the past. These are hardworking Americans willing to put in sweat equity by calling voters, canvassing neighborhoods, urging their fellow citizens to become more active in the civic work of their communities and nation. And these aren't snowflakes and couch potatoes and people who need puppy dogs and coloring books to survive truth and reality. Among these activists, there's a conflict over whether they believe President Trump can succeed or whether Republicans and Democrats will continue to thwart his efforts. 51% of those surveyed believe that Congress will continue to block President Trump. Can you believe this? Who controls the House and the Senate? Republicans. Let's digest this for just a second. More than half of respondents, 51%, of over 3,000 people who took the survey believe that Republicans will continue to block President Trump, the Republican president's intended policies and wishes manifested by the American voter. The GOP should be ashamed of themselves. How do these wimps and wusses stand up and look at themselves in the mirror every day thinking they're doing a great job? I'm sorry, they're terrible. They're ridiculous. It's so frustrating. When asked on whom our activists place the blame for this inability to accomplish anything in Washington, most agreed the political establishment, followed closely by the media. Activists were asked what attracts them to the Convention of States project, and a similar suspicion of the government is clearly shown. I'm going to give you the top four. Number one, Congress will never propose the proper kind of amendments to restrain itself. Number two, returning decision-making closer to the citizens of the sovereign states is important. Number three, the solution in Article 5 that bypasses the Congress and the courts is from we the people. And number four, this is a permanent solution. This being the Convention of States project and using Article 5 of the Constitution is a permanent solution to draining the swamp, no matter who controls Washington in the future. The question that the Convention of States project is continually asking is who decides. Should a corrupt, abusive, neutered Congress relinquishing its duty to the president, Supreme Court, and unelected bureaucrats, is that who should decide for you? Or should you and I decide the nation that we want and what we want to be free and self-governing? There's nothing more important than all of us, regardless of where we are, uniting to get our business done during the Trump administration. We have just under 4 years to do this. And it's not because I don't believe Trump can't win another term. It's because the lying, cheating Alinsky followers of those progressives in this nation are going to do everything they can to cheat and steal the 2020 election from us. They're so flabbergasted that Trump won that they now are desperate, and they are going to pull out all the stops to try to do anything they can to continue their tirade, their temper tantrum. This week, several George Soros organizations filed lawsuits to stop the administration's goal of getting dead people off the voter rolls. Of course, because Democrats love dead Democrats that continue to vote. So why would they support ensuring free and fair elections and clearing the voter rolls once and for all of dead people? Oh, these Democrats, I just can't take it. I am a tiny microcosm of the frustration, exactly what we heard from our grassroots over the last week. The American people are smarter, more educated, and politically savvy than ever before. This survey, another survey, says that just 9% of Republicans in the nation think the Trump team colluded with Russia. And that's down by 50% because in April it was 18% of Republicans thought that there was no collusion with Russia. Where is the GOP leadership on this? Why isn't someone standing up saying there is no conspiracy, there is no evidence, we're done talking about this, and we are now going to tackle the business of the American people? Where is Paul Ryan? Where is Mitch McConnell? Oh, the thumbsuckers. I can't hardly stand it. We've got crickets from Washington, but the American people thankfully know exactly what time it is. It is time for feckless Republicans and corrupt Democrats to be gone. Pink slips for all of them. Thank goodness 2018 is coming. And I don't think that Democrats fully understand what a real bloodbath is going to look like. But we are going to turn more states red in the next 18 months than we've ever had because we, the people, will not stay silent any longer. And for that, I am very excited. Tweet me this week at Tamara Colbert, hashtag Mama Grizz Radio. Thank you for listening. You have time. You are busy. And Mama Grizzly Radio, we thank you for your support. Have a blessed week. I'm Tamara Colbert for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tamara Colbert in Texas. Tune in for more Liberty and Legacy next week. And to learn about Convention of States, head to conventionofstates.com. The Palin Update, including Liberty and Legacy and the Crow's Nest, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also available at sarahpalin.com by clicking the More tab. Like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Schola, at Tamara Colbert, at Tanya Yoga 13, and at FBR ABQ. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to breitbart.com/columnists/Kevin-Schola. I'm also contributing to sarahpalin.com. Please check out my latest piece this week. Visit sarahpalin.com/author/Kevin-Schola. Honored to be working on the governor's new site. I want to thank Tamara Colbert, Tanya Crow, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Tanner Ainge, and thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, Full Battle Rattle. Visit facebook.com/FullBattleRattle, ABQ. The Palin Update is produced by Lena Anderson, the Andy L. Kramer, and Lori Ann Lewis. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Schola. Have a pleasant day.